So this week, we're going to hear, this is part 2 of a program that Joanie started just about a year ago about her trip solo hiking in Ireland. And tonight she's going to be talking about hiking at Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, and also 4 days after that she spent in Donegal Town in the Republic of Ireland. In Donegal Town, she toured the O'Donnell's Castle and ruins of the Franciscan Abbey that were built in 1474. Joanie is a longtime rover. She's been in the rovers since August of 2001, and she likes to do a lot of different things: cross-country skiing and snowshoeing and hiking and kayaking and biking and camping and finding all kinds of new adventures. She's also a musician and artist and enjoys banging pots at improvised campfire drum jams and other camp entertainments. So I'll turn it over to you, Joanie.
Okay, so welcome. This is exactly a year since I did the first half of this program. So here we are. When I decided that I wanted to go see the Giant's Causeway is because I saw photographs of this rock formation and I just had to see it myself. So I didn't want to take a tour bus. I didn't want to take a train. I didn't want to go up for an afternoon. I wanted to hike there. And there is an official Giant's Causeway way, that's what they call their trails. It's a way along the coast, and it takes a full day to do it. And I did it. So my first few days were in Derry, or Londonderry, and I stayed in a hostel and I walked a 14th century city wall that surrounds the downtown. I did all kinds of things. And then the hiking part started. It was a point-to-point self-guided hiking tour that I purchased from a company called Max Adventure. They arranged all of my B&Bs. I hiked during the day with a day pack, and my suitcase went from one B&B by taxi and was waiting for me at the next one. So it made things pretty simple. And they gave me written instructions. So you can see in my belt there's a folded up map case with my written instructions of how to recognize landmarks and how many meters to the next place and that kind of thing. So, and then after I did all this 8 days of hiking, then I went to Donegal Town and Bluestack Mountains and other things in Donegal on my own. So we'll keep going. So I started at Ballentoy Harbor and I crossed the White Bay Beach, avoiding the tide because it's the Atlantic Ocean. I crawled over boulders. I saw the Port Braddon Harbor, Dunceberry, Castle Ruins, Port Moonbothy, and the Hamilton's Seat, and the Causeway. So we'll just start. That's what the sign looks like. It's a little man with a walking stick. This is from my GPS program. I use Gaia. It was on my phone, and I just ran it on airport. So I started out on the far right, that little squiggly place where there's kind of a building. And that was my route. And you went up and down and were on bluffs and crossed water and crossed beach. And it was a long day. It was 15.2 miles, 134 floors. And once I got to the Giant's Causeway, then I still had to walk a couple of miles to get to my B&B. So it was a long day. Here we go. This is the Ballentoy Harbor. I had stayed in B&B just up the hill, and I'm just going to click through some slides for you. I believe way in the distance that would be Scotland. You're really not that far. Those two people in blue up ahead are an Australian couple who had relatives that had migrated to Australia, and they wanted to see where their great-grandparents had come from. The trail is on the grass to the left, and I went through that opening in the rocks. I think that might be Elephant Ear Foundation there. They all had names. And I sat here for an hour with the Australian couple after I caught up with them. We were waiting for the tide to go out the rest of the way because there is this part of rocky outcropping we had to go around, And the Australians finally decided to take their boots off and just wade. I didn't want to do that, so I waited another half an hour, and then I went too. I was able to get around this area by stepping on rocks after I waited another half an hour. And here's what I found. Freshly deposited kelp, didn't smell too bad. And that's the 3-mile beach that I have to cover. And then I will be crawling across a lot of boulders to finish that part of the hike. There was a herd of cows on the beach, and they just seemed to like to watch the surf. There were cows and sheep everywhere on all of my hikes. The hiking trails are all on private land. So you just have to be careful of the animals. And there's the rest of the herd of cows. And I keep going. That's where I was. And that's where I'm going, towards that village. That the rocks are just going to begin. You can see where the surf kind of points at where the rocks begin. After I crawled over all these rocks, which were wet and slimy, and there was standing water, and there was no path at all, you just had to kind of crawl your way across and do the best you could. I was really afraid I was going to trap an ankle or something, but I was careful and I got through. And then I saw a soldier putting out a weather balloon, and I talked to him for a minute, and I said, oh, the trail ahead of me, that really nice, smooth paved trail, that must be where I'm supposed to go next. And he says, no, it's not. You're going to go up this hill. That's your trail. So you kind of can see it's kind of a trail. And there it is. And I had to go through that opening. And it's taller than it looks. I did not have to bend over very much to get through there. I really enjoyed seeing how the grass kind of flows over the rock formations like it's carpeting. It shows the shape of the rock really well. And there's sheep. I'm going to have to hike on top of these bluffs all the way past that one in the distance. This, as you can, I wrote up here, it's the ruins of the Dunceberry Castle, and it was destroyed by Cromwell's troops in the 1650s. And there's another piece of that castle area. And had to cross a lot of little streams because it rains 5 times a day. That's where I was. I started way back there. This is a bothy. It is a small fisherman's house that if you were fishing and the storm sprang up on you, you could take shelter in that bothy. I'm not exactly sure where you put your boat, but you could get yourself off the water and have a shelter. My trail is way on top of that bluff. You can just kind of make it out if you look up there. This is Reverend Hamilton's bench. It's dedicated to him. He wrote the book published in 1786 that was the first person that really persuasively argued that the causeway was caused by volcano action. This is what he saw. This was his favorite place to sit, and that was my first view of the causeway. 40,000 plus columns that are 6 or 5-sided, formed by cooling lava that cracks as it cools, creating an upper colonnade, central entablature, and thick basal colonnade. I am not a geologist, so I just have to tell you what I read. Those little white dots at the bottom of that formation are sheep. Like I said, there's sheep everywhere. And there they are. There is sort of a trail there, and there's one sheep that's a little more intrepid way out on the edge, and I'm hiking on top. During this hike, I had to cross over lots of stiles because these are all places where animals are allowed to graze. I stopped counting stiles after I crossed over 20 of them. After a while, I just didn't want to know. I did so many steps and down steps and up steps and across a bluff and then up a step and down a step and a stile. And I was really glad I had done many steep hills in Minnesota before I went on this trip. And that's my cheering section. Cows like to come over and see what you're doing. And you can see some of the countryside there too. So here's my first real view of the Giant's Causeway. I'm up on the bluff, I'm coming down the Shepherd's Stairs, and I'm going to go down to the path, and that is the Atlantic Ocean. This is from a display there. You can see there's a red bullseye for the Shepherd's Steps, and there are names for all these formations. So I'm going down this trail. It's quite long. It's raining on and off. There's some of the colonnades. And I got there and there's standing water. It's raining, it's slippery as heck, but the only way to go is up and over. So a woman was getting her picture taken by me and I got her to take my picture of me. And that was pretty nice. People were very, very friendly. And I'm on the top. You can see this standing water. It's really slick there. I'm pretty happy. The people in these orange vests are to stop you from getting too close to the edge, because if you fall off, you're going to drown. Okay, I'm here. I made it. I'm on top of the formation. And the tour bus. Look at all this stuff. Wow. I'm going to come back tomorrow. So I did go back the next day and there were gale force winds. It was unbelievably hard rain falling. I didn't want to go out, but I was there. So I walked in this rainstorm and I couldn't even look to where I was going. I just had to bend over against the wind, but I went anyway. And you can see how rough the ocean is, but you can also see the rocks. I think a tour bus had just arrived. The rocks are basalt. I hope I said that right. So I did have another hike. I stayed overnight at the B&B and then I had another hike and it was supposed to be to Port Stewart. It was going to be a 15-mile hike on the coast. The weather was terrible. So I went with the taxi when it came to get my suitcase and I just went on to the next town, which was Port Stewart, stayed overnight. And I decided I wanted to go to Donegal because I'd been in Northern Ireland, which is part of Britain and of Great Britain, and I wanted to see what the Republic might be. Also, I knew that Donegal is very much a Gaeltacht area. I would hear a lot of Gaelic language, and I was just curious about all that. So I took a bunch of buses and went to Donegal, and I saw the Donago Castle, the Franciscan Abbey, and the graveyard. It's a port and market town. There was a ferry bank walk, and to my surprise, there was a special thing going on called the Military Tattoo with a parade and some reenactments. And I hiked a little part of the Blue Stack Mountain Way. And I got to hear some traditional music at a very famous pub called the Real Inn. So there we go. This is my route. I had to take a bus from Port Stewart over to Port Rush. Then I took a bus to Coleraine. I switched to a train. I went to Derry. Then I had to switch to a bus and go to Letterkenny, and then I took another bus to Donegal Town. It was an all-day thing, pretty much, because I had to keep waiting to make my connections. And you can see Donegal at the bottom on that little red signpost. It is a harbor. It is the River Eske that goes into the Atlantic Ocean there. So Republic of Ireland now. I did take a water taxi tour, which I'm not going to show you. It wasn't that interesting, but I did get some pictures of the town as it looks from out in the harbor. This is a picture I grabbed from the internet. It's kind of shows that there's this center area of the town and the roads go all around it, and it's called the Diamond. It seems like all Irish towns have this area called the Diamond. The Abbey Hotel, you see the sign up there. That's where you catch the bus. That's where you buy your bus ticket. There is no actual bus station. You do it at the hotel. These are just some of the buildings around the Diamond. It's not a big town, only 2,400 people. The town actually was founded by Vikings. And if I can find my note, in the 8th century. And the name Donegal means Fort of the Foreigners, referring to the Vikings. There was a music shop. I did not get to go into it, but music's super popular here. Every restaurant, every bar, every place had live music, and it was traditional music. Donegal is famous for tweed. It was a hand weaving tradition. It's now done by machines, but it used to be something that was a hand weaving on wooden weaving things, sorry. And it would be your own family sheep, and you would shear them, and then you would dye them by steeping them in different kinds of plants that grow in the area, and lichen and moss and that kind of stuff. That's a fire truck. I don't think I would ever forget to see a fire truck if our fire trucks look like that. Donago Castle was built in 1474 by the first Red Hugh O'Donnell, and that was the ruling seat of the O'Donnell clan. This is what he's supposed to have looked like. When the clan controlled 42 castles and 9 monasteries in that kind of province of Donegal. The flight of the earls was in 1607. The great-grandson of the first Red O'Hugh was also named Red Hugh O'Donnell, and he and O'Neill were trying to force the British out of Ireland, and they failed. They were defeated at Kinsale, and then they fled for their lives. They went to Spain and they tried to raise money and troops and to go back, but they never were able to come back. So the flight of the earls in 1607 began the plantation era by the British. There's the castle off in the left. You can see it there. It's right close to the downtown. It's not a big town. The lower area, you can see marks of the fires. They set fire to the whole thing. They wanted to destroy the castle as much as possible before they fled. The other part, the taller part, has been restored. You can see some of the ornate features. This is the part that was restored, and this was granted. The Donegal Castle and lands was granted to an English servitor, Sir Basil Brooke, and he repaired part of the castle and lived there with his family. Eventually, it was given to the city to be a tourist place. There's the dining area. I think the fireplace is bricked up. That's what it looks like to me. There's a lute. This fascinated me. I went up this set of stairs and they were really, really tricky because you did trip your way up. They were to slow down any invaders. This is a storeroom in the castle. And there's a stairs that comes up out of the storeroom. You can see some of the structure of the building in those exposed beams. And this is the ceiling of the storeroom. I'm not an architect. I can't tell you what's going on there, but it was fascinating to see. And here is a sign. You can read the two different mottos in there. I believe it would be in hoc signo vince. In this sign, thou shalt conquer. That was the O'Donnell's coat of arms. And then be gloria fini, honor above all. That was for Sir Basil Brooke. The Franciscan Abbey was built at the same time as the castle, and it was also built by the first Red Hugh O'Donnell. It was destroyed because in 1601, because the great-grandson, Red Hugh O'Donnell II, used the abbey as a fortress, and it looks like it got bombarded all to pieces. And also some of the stones were taken to restore the castle by Sir Basil Brooks. The Annals of the Four Master were written by 4 Franciscan monks, brothers, and it was really important. It is now kept in a museum in Dublin. It preserved Irish history, battles, foundations of castles, monasteries, and lives of the chieftains, kings, and abbots up to 1618. And this is what they think was the floor plan. And here's what's left. I believe that those flat stones are from markers for some of the brothers who were, that lived here in the Abbey when it was in use. And people still leave flowers. The harbor is just over there. That's the River Eske. Some of the gravestones were just beautiful. If I'd been thinking about it, I would have done some gravestone rubbing. There's Celtic stone. The cemetery and the abbey face the harbor, and it is well out of the water, but it is definitely commanding the harbor. And that's what it looks like at sunset. The Ferry Bank walk is also along the River Eske on the opposite bank. It's opposite of the monastery, and it's 1.5 miles long. Every sign that I saw was in Gaelic as well as English. And this is the Ferry Bank walk. The Irish have a special belief in ferries. So there's this nice walkway. All these little wooden doors, they're just tiny. And I didn't try to open any because I'm not a fairy, and I think they're just kind of nailed on there. But they were really charming. It was a lovely walk, and the sycamore trees were so graceful. They make such interesting shapes. And you can leave a letter. They have a children's festival in Donegal Town that celebrates this walk, and the children are encouraged to leave a letter. I don't think I did, but I wish I had. That's what the actual walking path looks like. It's really quite sunken in below the banks. There's to somebody's backyard. Heavy, heavy moss everywhere. You can see the roots of the trees. And there's just a tree. There's a couple of fairy doors on it, but mostly this is just the tree. It actually, to me, looks like a person kind of twisting in the wind. I had time to do a small part of the Blue Stack Mountains. It's 40 miles long. It starts at Donegal Town and it goes to Ardara on the coast. It's a 3-day hike. You have to stay in hostels. They don't allow camping. The elevation is not very great and there are very few trees. There's the map. You can see Donegal there and Ardara is underneath the other walker's sign. There's a circle kind of halfway along and that's where you can walk around the perimeter of a mountain. That red and yellow map part, that's my trail. That's what I did. I walked about 4 or 5 miles starting from downtown where my B&B was, and walked through country lanes and went as far as the marshy lake that's up there. They can just barely see the lake. That's what the walking trail looks like. Another little walking van. There were sheep everywhere, of course. And a funny thing happened when I was walking on this trail. I saw these sheep and then suddenly a sheep jumped out of a round hole in the fence, and it circled itself a couple of times and it's bleeding and making all this noise and looking at me. And then it takes off like a bullet down the trail. And I'm going, what the heck? So I kept hearing it going, bah, bah. And then it stopped. And when I got around the bend in the road there was another big hole in the fence and the sheep was back in a field eating again. It was strange. That's what I saw of the Blue Stack Mountains. They do look pretty blue, especially when there's a cloud overhanging it. But never fear, I do have pictures of the trail. I took some screenshots. There are lots of companies that want you to pay them for setting up the trip for you. So I have some of their photos. So you walk on country lanes like I did, and you would go across grassy areas with mountains back there. There's a boggy area coming up on this part. It rains 5 times a day. You're going to have standing water. I don't know the name of this mountain. You notice there aren't any trees. I can't pronounce this, but I believe that the first word is referring to the lake. And the second word here, that's the name of that mountain. And here's a woman trying to climb this mountain. I think the trail goes up to her left, but up quite steeply. So I would like to go back to that area and I would like to hike the Blue Stack Mountain Way. If anybody's interested, let me know. Now, as a surprise, there was a military celebration that weekend. It had never, ever come to Donegal before, but it was there, and tons of people turned out, and it was really impressive. Here's some of the flyers that were out. Some of the banners. There's another banner for World War I. And there's a That's here's just some still shots of the parade. These are some of the reenactors. All right, the reenactment that I got to see, I didn't have time to see all of them, but this one, the Battle of Ashburn, was so popular on Saturday, they did it again on Sunday, and that's how I was able to see it. The reenactment of the Battle of Ashburn was just outside of Dublin on April 28, 1916. And the reason it was a turning point in the Civil War of Independence was because this was the first time they were doing guerrilla warfare. They were not in a building shooting from the building. They actually were out hiding behind things. And I think this is probably a British soldier. Barry, you could probably tell me that if I'm right on that. So here's somebody hiding. They're doing this on the diamond, that central part of town. So it's a rose bush. And the guy with the very flat hat, he got arrested, and they were really kind of beating him up, and they had his hands tied behind him and pushing around, and it was pretty aggressive. I hear they are all posing because they're from the same reenactor society. This is stuff, I believe, from the Napoleonic War. I think it was just on display. I don't think you could buy anything. But you can see some shields and, of course, the old gun. And here's some other stuff, the helmets. While I was watching that reenactment, I sat next to two sisters that were from England, and they were going to go to the Real Inn that night for the music and to have a few drafts. So they saved me a seat, and I showed up around 7:30, which is kind of early. And they had saved me a seat, and I had my Guinness. So here's the pub. You can see she's playing a button box accordion, and there's a lute on the ceiling. There's 3 more accordions just sitting on shelves. And this was a lively place. It was just jammed. And those were my friends that saved the seat, and here I am with my draft. And that is the end. Does anyone have questions?
Yeah, Joni, this is Jane Ditzler. What was the temperature? Was it like 50s, and since it was raining all the time?
50s. And so I wore a t-shirt and then a kind of a moisture wicking zipper neck shirt. And then I had a vest on and a raincoat. And I wore rain pants over camping pants. Otherwise I got really wet legs.
Joni, this is Glenn Lee. I was wondering if you would tell us where the giant causeway was supposed to be going.
Yeah, I did forget about Finn McCool. Finn McCool wasn't supposed to be giant who wanted to go see what Scotland was like. So he walked across the land bridge. The Giant's Causeway supposedly went all the way from Northern Ireland over to this island in Scotland. And he got over there and he saw a Scottish giant that was even bigger than he was. And he got scared. So he ran across that land bridge and he hid in a giant cradle. And the Scottish giant followed him, saw Finn McCool, supposedly a gigantic baby in this cradle, he got scared and he ran back to Scotland. And then Finn McCool smashed up the land bridge. And that's why there's the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland. And then there's also part of it over same formation at this island in Scotland. Thank you, Glenn. You're the geologist. I knew you'd remind me. Any more questions?
Can you let us know the most interesting thing you ate during the trip?
Probably fresh caught fish, and it would often be kind of battered. And then you had some kind of a potato that was kind of fried too. I'm not a foodie, so that wasn't really my focus. There was a lot of good food that you could have had. I just wasn't my thing.
Right, thank you.
Sure. Oh, and there was a distillery very near the Giant's Causeway. So if you wanted to go visit this distillery and try the sample table, you could do that. I didn't have time. It just wasn't my focus. More questions?
Joni, this is Fran.
Hey, Fran.
And I'm wondering, you said that it was a self-guided thing and you went through a company that provided you with the maps. What involved your decision to go specific places? You know, I kind of understand about the Giant's Causeway because that's well known and pretty cool. But what made you decide some of the other places?
As far as going to Donegal, I just wanted to see what the Republic was like, and I wanted to be in a Gaeltacht area. I wanted to hear Gaelic. I've got it written down, my fourth great grandfather, Constantine O'Rourke, was from the northern part of Ireland, north of Galway. So I was curious about that. And the rest of the stuff I did on that hiking tour, that was just kind of because I liked the Game of Thrones, and some of those places were featured in the Game of Thrones. And I love hiking.
Oh, was that just a Guinness or was that a black and tan there?
What?
Was that a Guinness or a black and tan?
Oh, you better believe it was a draft Guinness. And I've been buying Guinness in the bottle here in this country, and it's not the same, not the same, not the same, not the same. I have to go back and have a real Guinness.
Is it like the British pubs, or is it chilled more? Or
I've never been in a British pub, so I can't compare. Sorry.
They don't, like, it's not like the US. It's more like, it's almost like a warm beer, kind of a warm beer. I'm not sure the temperature. I think 50 degrees, I think, or something.
Yeah, it was not icy cold.
It wasn't. Okay.
It was.
Okay, I have to speak here. So
Okay.
the
Oh, that's right. We have a local.
warm beer. It's cool. It's not freezing cold. Normally from the cellar. But I
Feel a lot of flavor that.
I remember going to one of the Caribbean islands, and they made Guinness under license, and I really like that. So I think it is a little different in different places depending on where it's made. But I've never been to Ireland, so I don't know what it's like there.
Well, that is the home of Guinness, so you kind of expect it to be good.
You would
So,
think.
but when the beer is not icy cold, you get a lot more flavor, you get a lot more aroma. It's almost like savoring a wine.
Yeah, I'm told that.
Joan-
Okay, Quentin.
Joan, can you imagine what it was like to live there before you had the bed and breakfast and the hotels to go into and the motor coaches to pick you up at the end of the day? It seems like a fairly hostile territory to me.
That area is very poor, and there used to be a lot of fishermen. I was told by a taxi driver that his family had traditionally for generations been fishermen, but that the Japanese fleets had come and fished out the areas and they could no longer be a fisherman. There were, at Donegal, there was a famine cemetery. I did not go visit it. There were famine museums all over the place because so many people starved. And I believe that Not only did my fourth great grandfather O'Rourke, he came to the United States in the late 1700s, but I believe the other branch that's Irish, the McClures, I think they left Ireland because of the famine. They left in the 1840s. It's very poor there. Even nowadays, they're really happy to see tourists. They're really nice to tourists because they need you. Anybody else?
Do we have
Joni,
another question?
Joni, sorry, I have a question. This is Karen.
Hi.
So it rained every day, but is there a rainier season or is it like year round rainy?
No, it rained 5 times a day. Get it right.
It's a little cooler in the winter months, but it just rains. That's
Okay.
It rains hard, it rains soft, it rains a little, it stops, the sun comes out, it rains some more. It's just wet.
It's very changeable because it's on the west of the British Isles. It gets probably more rain than a lot of other places in the British Isles. If you go to the east of Britain, you get less rain. But Ireland and Wales certainly get a lot of rain. But like Joni says, sometimes it's drizzle and then it gets a little heavier and then it stops for a bit. And I mean, it kind of comes and goes, in my experience.
There's always a stack of newspapers so that when you take off your shoes or boots and you're at the B&B, you just start stuffing your toes of your boots and shoes with newspapers to dry them out overnight. That's what you do. It's just the way it is. And I had a very, 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 very good raincoat. It had kind of a brim so the water did not drip in my face. It dripped over and away. And it had Velcro fasteners. It had zippered pockets and fit really well around the top of my head. It could be fitted so that it would not blow off of my head either. And that was
What
true.
kind of raincoat did you have? Because I've had really bad luck with raincoats.
I think it's an Arc'teryx. Does that sound like a right name? Arc'teryx.
Yep.
Arc'teryx.
Yeah.
And it cost almost $300, but I figured it was the most essential gear I could have. And of course, I'm frugal, so I bought it during a sale at REI and I used all of my saved up points because I'm a member and I save money every time I buy something. And that helped. Also, I bought boots that were oboes that were guaranteed by the REI shoe guy that they would dry out really, really fast because I figured I was going to have wet boots at the end of every day, and I did. And I had a 40-liter day pack so that I could take along maybe a change of clothes. I had to carry lunch every day. I ate the biggest breakfasts of my life at these bed and breakfasts. I had eggs, I had scones, I had fruit, I had muesli. I just ate enormous breakfasts because I was going to be walking all day long on the hiking portion.
What were the rain boots that you purchased?
The hiking boots were oboes. It's a brand name. I got them at REI, but I think you can get them anywhere. They were really, really helpful to have them. They would dry so quickly.
And what was the name of the tour place that you arranged all this through?
I used Max Adventure because some other rovers had done a program about using Max Adventure for a hiking tour in England, and it sounded like a good company. So Max Adventure, but actually in Ireland, there are all sorts of Irish companies that would be more than happy to book a tour for you.
MAX, Max?
MAC''S Adventure, ADVENTURE.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But if you wanted to use an Irish company, I think I would use Footfalls because I found out that Max Adventure had subbed the trip through Footfalls. So why not just go to an Irish company?
Good falls?
Footfalls, like your foot fall. Fallfoot.
Hey, Joni, it's Rob. Did you have much difficulty understanding the accents and the whatnot, or were they pretty clear?
My ears could not get used to it. It was really very lilting. And whenever I would ask somebody for some help, they would have to repeat it a couple of times. When I was changing from a bus to a train at some point, I asked these teenage girls, you know, where do I go? I couldn't figure out where I was supposed to go to make my connection. And they told me, and they spoke so quickly and so liltingly. And I asked the girl to repeat it a couple of times, and she got mad at me and she said, "You're making fun of me." And I said, "No, I'm an American. My ear hears music when you're talking. I don't hear the words." And then she kind of thought about it, and then she was really nice and spoke very, very slowly for me.
Well handled.
And she pointed. That helped too. People are so nice, though. I had some trouble figuring out trains and buses. There are two different bus companies because there's two different countries in Ireland. There's one train company, but you have two different currencies. You had euros in Northern Ireland, and then you had euros in the Republic of Ireland, and you had pounds in Northern Ireland. And I'm juggling money, and I used my credit card a lot. But if you got on a local bus like I did to go from Port Stewart all the way down to Donegal, some of the buses wanted you to have the right currency. People use buses. They don't really drive that much. So you got on a bus and it was a local bus going from one town to the next, like you're going to go to the dentist or something. You had to have the right change and you had to have the right kind of money. They won't take it otherwise, and they won't let you get on. So that was kind of a problem a couple of times, but I managed. People were very, very helpful. But it's hard to get my ear going. If anyone knows that song that was played in the pub, it has the word Donegal in it over and over again. I wish I could figure out what they were singing because I'd like to know what song that was.
I believe it's Roddy Corley, something like that.
Roddy Corley?
Corley, yeah.
I'll talk to you later, Glenn, and then you
Okay.
can spell that for me and help me with it. Thanks. Anything else?
Can you do shorter distances on these tours?
Yeah, I could have done a 4-day. I could have done a 1-day. It's all sorts of possibilities. You can do a 10-day. It's just what you want to do, what you're willing to pay for. The Giant's Causeway part, I could have just gone to Derry or to Dublin and taken a 1-day tour. I didn't have to do all that walking. I just wanted to hike. I wanted to experience the shoreline. I wanted the wind in my face and the rain in my face, and